There it is.
Well, hello, Eagles. We're back in our remote learning counseling office. And we're going to start today by a little bit of review of what we've talked about the last couple of weeks. We talked about calm down skills, but last week we talked about feeling grateful. Neah, do you want to share what you did this week?
Sure. So in the video last week, I talked about making a gratitude jar, and I just had a few things in my gratitude jar last week, and now it's full.
Wow.
So I love to do it this way because I can see my jar full of things to be grateful for, and it helps to remind me just how many things that I appreciate. So I'm going to have to empty it this next week and start again. And Sarah, would you like to show us what you've been working on this week?
Yes, so last week I talked about writing a journal, and I made a journal, which I was doing. I've been doing it every night, and that's interesting for me that I've just before I go to bed, I've been writing down 3 things that I'm grateful for that day. And it's really helped me, I think, get a bit of better sleep this week, which has been awesome. And I really also like looking back at it and seeing what I said. So now I can go on to the next week and start adding more.
Nice. Well, this week we're going to talk about healthy ways to stay active during this time of staying in our places. I imagine many of us are using screens. Well, like if you're watching this video, you're having some screen time right now. I think of healthy food being good for our bodies, and I think about is healthy screen time as good for our brains. And I think a lot of screen time is not so healthy for our brains. I mean, like when I think about sweets, they're not healthy for our bodies really. So I need to be careful in choosing when to eat sweets and how much sweet to eat and what kind of sweets to eat. Same with screen time. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is a show that I think is pretty healthy. Maybe it's a sweet, but it's something like a small piece of dark chocolate that's eaten at the right time, not like a giant pillow of cotton candy. I can tell because after watching the show, like after eating the right amount of dark chocolate, I feel pretty good, and I feel good for a while. If I watch the show where people are being cruel to each other, I can tell in my body that I feel upset. So when it's okay with your parents, I encourage you to watch a rerun of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood on PBS Kids. We'll put a link on the website. That's after you finish your schoolwork, of course. And if you really like the show, maybe you could put like 30 minutes a day of Mr. Rogers for a while. I'll just tell you a little where I started with Mr. Rogers. When I was in 6th grade, I started being a babysitter for the neighbors, and there were 4-year-old twin boys, and they loved Mr. Rogers. So I sat around watching it, even though I was thinking like this is a little kid's show. But I noticed that after watching the show, I felt really good, and I learned a lot. Mr. Rogers would tour the neighborhood. He'd go to the baker, or there was a scientist, a custodian, an actor. There was like a gym teacher like Mr. Reynolds. There was a magician. There was Mr. McFeely who delivered things. And I was thinking, wow, delivery people are like the fastest growing business in our time right now, where we stay in our places all the time. And the music shop was one of my favorite neighbors. Mr. Rogers always had live musicians, a jazz piano player and a bass player and a drummer. Sometimes he would travel to make-believe places using his trolley, his electric train. I've always loved trains. And of course, there was Daniel the striped tiger in the imaginary world, and maybe you know him from PBS Kids. So in these stay-home days, we have times when we have to manage a lot of difficult feelings. And Mr. Rogers talked a lot about feelings. That was a main focus of the show. And sometimes difficult feelings. He taught us that it's good to talk about anything, especially how feelings come and go. He talked about anger and how you can get really angry at even the people that you love the most. He had this famous song, "What Do You Do With the Mad That You Feel?" And he shared out simple ideas like just going out and starting a game of tag when your body is just filled up with a feeling. He talked about different subjects that were difficult, like when his goldfish died, scary dreams. And it just made me feel better to know that it's okay to talk about difficult subjects. So as a babysitter, I was starting to become a teenager, and the changes in being a teenager can be uncomfortable. And Mr. Rogers' message was always, you make me feel each day a special day, just being yourself. And it was just so nice to hear that. Even from this guy on TV, it felt like he genuinely felt that way. So, and more than anything else, Mr. Rogers taught me that the best thing that I can do in the world is set an example of caring for my neighbors and see and respecting all people as if they're my neighbors. So check out Mr. Rogers if you don't watch him already. Neah, what have you got for an idea this week?
So thank you, Mr. Dan. I also love Mr. Rogers, and I just watched a documentary on Mr. Rogers, which I highly recommend as well. So I have 3 games for you to keep busy at home, and for these games, you don't need anything but one other person to do them with. So the first game, I imagine you may have heard of it. It's called 20 Questions. And one person thinks of something like a person, a place, or a thing, and the other person can ask up to 20 questions, but they have to be yes or no questions to try and guess what it is. The next game is called the name game. And first, you have to pick a category. It could be animals, countries, cities, songs, and the first player, okay, for this example, I'm going to use animals. So the first player might pick an animal like pig, and the next player has to think of an animal that starts with the last letter of that animal. And so
goat.
There we go. And so Jackie picked goat, and the next player has to think of an animal that starts with the last letter of goat. Can anyone?
Turkey.
Turkey. Oh, and turkey ends with a Y. So the next person would have to think of an animal that starts with a Y, and that's kind of tricky.
Yak.
Ah, yeah. Okay. So then the next person would think of an animal that starts with K, because yak ends with a K. So you just keep going as long as you can, and you can't repeat any words. And again, you could do it with countries, cities, types of trees, types of snacks, anything. And the last game is called Going on a Trip. Or it could be going to the grocery store. You just go somewhere, and this is kind of fun because we can't go anywhere right now, so we have to use our imagination. And it's a memory game. So this is going to test your skills to remember things. So if, for example, if we use I'm going to the grocery store, the first person would pick something that they need from the grocery store that starts with A. For example, I'm going to the grocery store and I need applesauce. And the next person has to repeat what the previous person said and add something with the next letter of the alphabet. So something that starts with B. So for example, Miss Sarah would have to repeat, I'm going to the grocery store and I need applesauce, and she adds something that starts with B. Can you think of it something?
Bananas.
Banana. And so then if it's just Miss Sarah and I playing, I would have to repeat, I'm going to the grocery store, I need applesauce, bananas, and I think of something that starts with C, like cheese. Okay. Ooh. And so you keep going as long as you can. And you could do it. I'm going on a trip and I need to bring something that starts with A. I need an airplane. And so those are just 3 games that can help you pass the time, because we all recognize that sometimes the days can feel quite long. Okay, Miss Jackie, would you like to share?
I would love to. Thank you for that. My mind feels busy and excited already. I have found that staying in on a schedule, kind of when we were in the building of the school, or something we call a routine, has really helped me to stay busy. Some of you students at Northgate know that I am Miss Jackie at school, and when I go home, I am mommy. I do have a son. He's about 2.5 years old right now. So my routine every day is I get up at 6 o'clock, which is actually later than when I went to Northgate Elementary. I wake up my son, I get him breakfast, and right now he's still able to go to school, which is called daycare. So those are still open, but the schools that we go to are not. And then I actually work from home from about 7:30 to about 3:30, 4 o'clock. That's my routine. So that's kind of how I go from mommy to work, back to mommy. And I make sure that I eat lunch somewhere between 11 and 12. So my body sends me signals the same day. And so I can recognize those body signals that I'm thirsty or hungry, and I check in with myself. And then at the end of my day, I put all my work things away, and my son comes home, and my routine switches from work to home. So that helps me keep my mind busy, because it helps me chunk up my day the way we would in the classrooms. And that helps me to stay organized. It helps my brain to have something to do, and it keeps me from kind of being in those worry feelings that I have, and it helps me have something to look forward to. I love, love, love waiting for my son to come home, because he always comes home with a great big smile. We always have dinner around the same time. I know sometimes that's not in our control, but if we can try to have food around the same time with the people that you are with in the place that you are staying safe in. And then I always try to go to bed at about the same time. And part of that schedule, part of that routine means I do the same things I would as if I could go outside, like brushing my teeth, changing out of my pajamas, and changing back into my pajamas, even though I'm in the same place. So that's been really helpful to keep me busy. And I hope that that helps some of you as well. So I think it is time for Miss Sarah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I totally agree. Finding a routine for me and for my kids has been really helpful for this last week, especially as we've been getting back after spring break and trying to work out what that looks like again, and doing our schoolwork, and my kids doing schoolwork too. So doing another idea that we had and I wanted to share with you is something we can actually do together as Northgate Eagles. Even though you're at home, it's something that you can do to feel a little bit connected with some of your friends and teachers. So we have created a special scavenger hunt for Northgate Eagles, and it is called the Eagles Wellness Challenge. Now, you might have done a scavenger hunt before, and you can make your own scavenger hunts at home as well if you want to. But this one, this one, these are my kids. You see, when we're talking about routine, they're a bit busy at the moment. I'll be back in a minute, boys. Go. Okay.
Finished everything.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a snack.
They know their routine, Miss Sarah.
They know their routine.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Sorry about that. But that's what life's a bit of like at the moment. We're all getting a bit interrupted sometimes. So this is the Eagles Wellness Challenge. Now, I'm going to put this on our website for you. It's there so you can download it. Now, our challenge for you is if you can complete 5 of the challenges on here. Each challenge is in a different box, and there are 2 sides of the paper, or 2 pieces of paper, so there's lots for you to keep busy with. And if you can complete 5, then we want you to let us know. So maybe you could let your teachers know if you're in a class meeting, and they can let Mr. Dan and I know, or they can, or any of us, or you can ask your parents to send an email to us, and I will put all of those instructions on the website. But we would love to know if you're doing it. So let me give you a few examples of things you could do. So here's the first one. From where you are now, name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and one thing you can taste. And that's it. Okay? You don't have to write it down for us. We just want you to do it. Okay? And just to pick another one, I'm going to throw what this one is different from Mr. Dan. So after you've had your time watching the screens, the next challenge is to have screen-free time. So this one is to spend 4 hours in a row during the daytime without looking at a TV, tablet, computer, phone, or video game screen. That's quite hard. So that's one to do. And then another one might be to watch a video of a yoga or a mindfulness video. So there's lots of ideas on there. There's lots of different things, and the things that are on our counselling website for you as well. I'm getting interrupted again. Yes, thank you. Yes. Oh dear. So my kids know that routine means that at 10 o'clock it's snack time, and that's the time we're recording this. So those are some ideas from the counselling team today. I'm sorry for my interruptions, but I expect
we love special guests.
Yes, special guests. I expect that life's a little bit like that for you at the moment, that things aren't always quite what you think they're going to be, and the day doesn't always turn out quite as we expect. So keeping busy and having things to do can feel good to help you get up in the morning and help you get out of bed. Like Miss Jackie was saying, clean your teeth, take your pajamas off, and then what? Okay, so hopefully some of these ideas today will help you keep you busy during the day, both your mind and your body, and that will help you get through the day and also help you have a better sleep at the end of the day. Okay, thank you for joining us again. We'll see you again soon from the counselling team.
Bye.
See you soon.
Have a great week.